So was this the right move? Let's get an investor perspective. We're joined by the CEO of Inkunzi Wealth Group, Owen Nkomo. Owen, great to have you with us. Again, what was the investor or the RAND reaction today?
Francis, good evening and good evening to the viewers. The decision made was in line with our expectations, so we didn't see a lot of reaction in terms of the markets and in terms of currency. We had factored in that there's not going to be an increase, and I do believe that there's not going to be an increase or any downside movement on the interest rates in the country for probably the balance of the year until you start to see an environment that becomes inflation aggressive, which at the moment inflation really remains benign, even if there's an expectation that inflation might tick up in the coming quarters of the year. But I think that the balance of scales, in my view, probably going to support a flat change on the interest rates in the country for the remainder of the year.
So when inflation is low, the Reserve Bank usually has some scope to cut interest rates, to give consumers a break, because it helps them to go and spend. It doesn't mean the economy is overheating or anything like that. So inflation came in at 2.9% in February. That was lower than the floor of 3% that the Reserve Bank targets. So you're saying that didn't give any scope, though, for a cut?
No, I don't think that, it's the only thing that the guys will be looking at. They're looking probably at what happens next quarter to inflation. We have to contend still with the higher fuel price. The fuel's sitting now above $60 a barrel, coming back from about $70. I think we want to see if that is going to pitch in, it's going to show up in our inflation numbers in the next coming couple of months. And I believe that is going to be an important part of the decision-making process at the SARB. They look at a whole metrics and they decide based on that metrics. And I do think that as well, we need to be very cautious to not start increasing interest rates sooner than we should be because of inflation. And at the same time, we need to be careful to not carry on aggressively reducing interest rates, because if the environment in terms of inflation changes, we will then be forced again to start chasing inflation.
Yeah.
I think it was the right decision to make to keep the interest rates flat.
Okay, so the rest of the year you see interest rates remaining the same, basically?
I think so. Unless if you see inflation maybe going closer to 2%, then that's a different conversation. I believe that the governor and his team at SARB might probably come out with a different perspective. And that's hoping maybe the rest of the world remains the same, or things work in such a way that the currency firms up, which favors a lower inflation environment. I think only then could they consider dropping interest rates more. I do wish they could do that, because it could really help the consumers. It could really help companies and households out there if we've got a couple more interest rates cuts. But that is all dependent on information, as the governor has always reiterated when he presents these decisions.
Well, the bank, I'm glad you brought that up, has been cutting rates, which supports the economy because it allows people to pay less on things like bonds, on their credit, and spend more in the shops, helping retailers, etc. So everyone could do a little bit better. But it's often said that there's only so much, well, the governor says there's only so much monetary policy can do. So now it's for other things to happen to help our economy.
Yes, most definitely. The fiscal policy side of things has to kick in as well. We need to see the government driving aggressively, pushing the infrastructure spending that is expected to help grow the economy. We cannot be dealing with things like we were anxious about receiving vaccines, and we are failing to roll those vaccines out as urgent as we need to be in order to get the economy going. So if we can't just administrate vaccine rollout when we have the vaccines, I am worried about our rollout of the infrastructure projects in the country, which we actually desperately need to see so that jobs can be created and the economy can grow again. And, inflation, might, on the strength of a rand, maybe inflation might stay lower for longer as well if we were to do that. I just wish the government could aggressively roll out the infrastructure side of things so that, we've got the monetary side of things and also the government funded growth side kicking in as well.
Well, despite the infrastructure spend, there were also these low-lying fruits. The government said it would target, like Spectrum, the so-called structural changes that the economy needs to do better. Are you seeing any positive signs?
Look, that remains, one of those highly debated things. Is it happening? Is it not? But we're lucky enough to be working with some people that are in the space that actually say that the government is trying their best to roll out the availability of internet in, like the high-density neighborhoods. And I think we need to see more of that. And all those other low-lying fruits that the government and the minister have spoken about before, we need to be triggering those. We need to start to see those kicking in because one job at a time is very important than a situation where we're not creating any jobs at all. I just wish we could go boot and all and make sure that we can start to drive the economy in the right direction while the interest rates are still low and companies can borrow from banks. If they've got solid balance sheets enough, they can borrow from the banks and invest back into their businesses.
Oh, in a quick opinion, if you will venture it, interest rates are relatively low. Should people go out and buy houses and things like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, if you've been looking to buy a house, I'd say go ahead. I think a smarter thing and a cleverer thing would probably to reduce some of your debt, start paying high amounts of premiums than you have been paying at these low interest rates, because they're not going to stay here forever. So just take advantage of them and pay as much of your debt as possible. But if you're looking for property, go ahead as well and buy now. It's a great time to be buying.
Thank you very much, CEO of Inkunzi Wealth, Owen Nkomo. Now, as promised, we will take you live a little bit later on. We are monitoring what's happening. This is the ANC Gauteng holding a memorial service for the Tanzanian late President John Magufuli, and we are expecting former President Jacob Zuma to speak there. Those are live visuals. We'll keep on monitoring and we'll take you live when he speaks and if as that event unfolds.